building a regulation-conscious culture in your workplace, to master a strong culture of regulatory awareness in your company.
I have music. Come on, you can't beat that.
Kris DeAngelo, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I am the last of the last. And all you get to do is party after this, right? So my name is Kris DeAngelo. I'm the Associate Director for the Institute for Food Laws and Regulations at Michigan State University. And I also teach 5 of our courses, along with the next Canada course, which is fabulous if anybody's looking for Canada food law. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what Sunny had started talking about yesterday. But I think I'm going to do a little bit of a different slant for it because I'm going to do the why and how you can actually take that back to your company to actually do something. They don't think about mistakes from miscommunication. Oh, here's the clicker. So that song is actually copyrighted by Frank Giannis. It is the food safety culture song, and written by one of my colleagues, Dewey Lungowski. He actually wrote it, sang it, and produced it. So, in case anybody wants it. So in the food industry, when we're talking about a regulation-conscious culture, we're talking about more than just doing GMPs. This is not what we want to leave this as our basic. We want to go above where everybody kind of starts from, because I believe that one of the things that one of our problems right now is we're stuck in the 1900s. If you notice the picture of the little kid, that's Riley Detweiler. Riley Detweiler was one of the 4 children who actually died in 1993 after the Jack in the Box crisis. Now, we look at that poor little Riley, and for those of you who know Darren, he's a fabulous speaker. We're 31 years later. We're still killing people. We're still making people sick. There's a fabulous app, at least for the US, called Food Recalls. It does a running list of all the things that are recalled. So we've got 39 sick and 1 dead posted on the 4th. We've got multiple people sick on the 3rd, multiple dogs sick on the 2nd, 39 sick, 1 dead on the 2nd, 39 sick, 1 dead on the 2nd, another one. 39 sick, 1 dead on the 29th. You can run to the list. We're failing the public here in Canada and the US and the world. We're doing a really bad job, and we knew better. We knew back in 1993. We need to pray for that too as well. But we need to do better. And I pulled some books up here. So those of you who are old enough, you remember the 1990s. We had the explosion of all this pop business books on how to improve your business, and pop science books, learning about science that you didn't get when you were back in high school. Well, I pulled 4 of them. One is Future Edge. And for those of you who ever heard Joel Barker speak, he had a video back in 1992 that went along with this book. And he said, we need to paradigm shift. We need to change, in order to be successful, we need to change what we're doing in a major way. We need to be the companies that are visionary, and we need to be the people in those companies who are making big changes. We need to not go with the status quo. We need to be that actual intent and managers that are going to make the changes. Now, that was 30 years ago. Since then, look at the big companies. Look at Apple. There was no iPod in 1992 when he came out with this. Now there's no iPod anymore. There's no Google. There are no smartphones. There's no social media. All of those things. His whole premise was the world was going to change and it was going to become more global. He was actually 100% correct. When we look at leading change, Sonny brought this up yesterday, we're looking, the whole premise of the book was we need to do those 8 things. We need to have some kind of sense of urgency. We need to have a vision. We need to get people on our page. We need to actually have a systemic change based on what we as companies are going to see the future at. We need to get all of those changes together, and we need to promote the little tiny incremental changes so that we get to a place where we're actually going to have a different industry. And the premise still stands 30 years later. Well, that was 96. First break all the rules. First break all the rules came back and it said, hey, we need to really look at our employees, and we need to have those employees be part of that change. We need employees who are going to believe in our vision. We need employees who are going to be recognized for their talents in the right positions. We need to recognize those talents so that the business is more successful. And lastly, Built to Last, and there were hundreds of books written like this. Built to Last had the idea that in order to be the gold company, not the silver and not the bronze, you need to be the company that was actually going to make a difference, excite the public, and give them what they need. And what we need is more food safety, and we need a paradigm shift so that we don't have to worry about, is there a recall? We need to not let people get sick at all. It's not right now, it's not an if, it's a when. And your company may be on that cutting edge, that visionary kind of company. I hope you are. If you're not, maybe you'll be after this. But we need to make sure that the culture across the industry, that it becomes one where people are actually not accepting of things that aren't 100% safe. You're going to argue with me and say, no, we can't do it. It can't be 100% safe. It's going to be a lot closer than it is right now. And if we strive for 100%, we're going to be a lot closer than we are today. So what happened? Why do we still have this problem? Because number one, people don't understand the risk. Whether it's those of you in the room who are managers, or whether those of you who are in compliance and regulatory affairs, quality assurance, somebody isn't getting the memo. There's huge risk to people being sick. Not only in terms of the number of people who have to who are hospitalized or who die. In Canada, you have a population of 40 million people. You had 4 million people sick with foodborne illness. In the United States, we have a population of 335 million. We had 48 million people sick with foodborne illness. You guys had 11,600 people who were hospitalized. We had 128,000 people who were hospitalized. You had 238 people who died. We had over 3,000 people who died. And that's because something happened in our companies and we didn't recognize the risk and we didn't prevent it, because the fact that we don't have a regulation-conscious corporate culture in our companies is creating this problem. Now, here in Canada, you have an average of 220 to 250 recalls a year. In the United States, we had 740 this year alone. That is twice the number we had last year, and it's 3 times the number we had before. And many of those are preventable if we change the culture so that everybody understands what the regulations are and we want to do it better. We also don't understand the benefit. And that's where I'm going to come up with the why in just a few minutes. The benefit to you is not just bottom line. Well, the bottom line is going to sell to management, right? But understanding the benefit to the public and creating those core values where people are actually going to believe that their food is safe is going to promote your brand. It's going to give you loyal customers. And we're going to be able to have that systemic culture in place where people don't have to worry about things like Boar's Head and Grimley Farms and Bluebell Creamery and Bruce Pack. So I want you not to panic. Do not panic. Do not practice accepting non-compliance that impact your company. Instead, I want you to focus. I want you to find ownership in compliance, and I want you to uphold safety. want that to be your core mission. Or at least if you are not the manager, to be able to get your management, your C-suite, to be able to believe that this is what their goals should be. Because safety is going to give you success and sustainability. Why is it important? We all know it's important for your brand. If you look at a food industry or a food company like Chipotle, Chipotle had a number of problems in their several years of issues. Their stock price dropped. It took a quarter for it to drop to the bottom. It took 15 quarters to come back up to the level it was before the first outbreak. There's a reason you can use that data to be able to inform management that this is something that has to come from them. We do want to avoid trouble. We don't want the regulators coming down and breathing down your necks. We don't want to have all of the industry, but we also don't want to have citizen suits. Now, I know, as was it Sharon who said earlier, the U.S. is very litigious. You Canadians are much nicer, and that's coming from an American. I do believe that you guys are less litigious, but that doesn't mean that you're not still open to the same kind of risk, especially those of you who are industries where you're actually exporting your product. Because if you're exporting it to us, there's going to be somebody, the plaintiff's bar, especially out in California and now on the East Coast, it's huge. And it's not necessarily the people who are injured who win, it's the lawyers. As a lawyer, I can say that. I'm not making the money, but I'm not going to say that. But safety should be first. Safety should be your preeminent goal. I understand money is important. I get it. But we have the public trust in our hands. So we need you to be the people to go back to your company and change, by teaching, your entire company's style, your entire company's main goal. Because first it should be safety. Second, you can make money. Because if you don't make it safe, you're not going to have the money afterwards. You're going to be like the Costers with their 6 billion eggs that were recalled. Or Peanut Corporation of America. They had, let me tell you, 28 years in jail. That's a lot. It's personal liability. And that's before, in the United States, what we call the Park Doctrine, where you can have your senior corporate officers actually be personally and strictly liable. It's coming. You need to be able to convince your C-suite that you want to be the best. You want to be the best company. You want to have the best safety record. You want that to be your marketing. We're not the people who have the problems. We want to be the brand that's actually going to be chosen off the shelf. There's an awful lot of competition out there. And I know safety is not like glamorous. It's more fun to have cool claims, at least according to your marketing people. But I'll tell you that that's where you're actually going to have the success. If we can shift the paradigm and get everyone in all of the industry to actually put safety first, and regulations, because that's where it comes from, right? Safety comes from the regulations. And no, that should actually be a baseline. That should not even be where you're aiming for. You should aim for higher than that. But we want to be able to be the leader. And being here at a conference like this gives you the opportunity to be the cutting edge, which gives you the ability to be the gold company, not the silver, not the bronze. You have the ability to start changing the entire face of industry. You are the people who, as back in 1992, were the paradigm shifters. You're the people who are here to learn and network and be part of the conversation. You are the movers and shakers. You're the people who aren't just doing what you did yesterday. Because you're going to walk out of this conference and you're going to have new connections, new information, new cool tools. Second thing you need to do is you need to recognize it's not just the C-suite. It's also going to be your employees from the top all the way down. Because even if your janitors are not doing their job, they're going to create risk for the entire company. You need to be able to hire people who have that food safety culture. Now, I'm not saying you have to fire everybody on your staff. That would be ridiculous. You can't replace them. But if the message is coming from top, and the top actually believes it and walks it and talks it and comes down to the plant floor and says, hey, how are we doing on safety today? How are we meeting those regulations? If they believe it from the top and they don't just do the lip service, oh, safety's important. That's how we change it. That's how we change it, and we don't let people like Riley Detweiler die, because we're still letting it happen. Now, when you look at the corporate values, a lot of our corporations are still down here at the bottom. They're looking to maximize profits and minimize loss. That's not where you belong. This is a lot like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This also came from 1991, folks, more than 30 years ago. We've spent a lot of time talking about legal and compliance. We're talking about, yay, let's make sure we're always meeting all of those regulations. Let's do FSMA 204. I'm going to ask you that we really need to be moving above that. Those are minimums. You need to be ethical. You need to be the company that's actually showing that you have the morality and the values and the practices that are going to promote consumer trust. You're going to be socially responsible, environmentally responsible. These are the soft regulations. These are things that your company wants to actually put out there. And you say that this is important to us, even if the government's not making us. We're going to do better than what the government's telling us to do. And then when you get past that point, you can actually be philanthropic. What are you giving back to the world? Some companies are a little closer than others. So the why, when you're looking at taking this presentation back to your company, you need to know the why. How are we going to get the people in the C-suite or operations or R&D or quality or marketing to be on the same page? Because remember, you need people from the top all the way down to the bottom. How are we going to get there? You really need to understand, just like Sarah Jane talked about yesterday, you need to be able to speak their language, right? Your C-suite is going to recognize money, right? You need to tell them, not only here's your carrot, here's your stick. You don't want to be the one who's in jail for 28 years. You don't want to be Chipotle, who had to pay $25 million. You don't want to be Family Dollar, that in the United States, $41 million. Now that's a teeny tiny bit of their profits. It was 0.165% of their profits for the year. If you don't know the Family Dollar store, they had a distribution facility that had a rodent infestation. They decided to close the plant, close the facility, open one somewhere else. It had a negative impact not just on corporate. It also impacted all of those people, all those families, all those people who were working there. Certainly not very philanthropic of them. But if you can tell the C-suite, here's our stick. Here's our financial incentives. We are going to lose money. Not that we're going to lose it tomorrow, not that we're going to lose it next month, not that we're going to lose it next year, but we're putting ourselves at risk to lose money. And you can quantify it. You can throw out some numbers. If we don't fix this, these are the potential problems. You might not go to jail here in Canada. But if you let some of these things go, who knows what's going to happen when we start adding more regulations? Probably not in the US for the next 4 years. All right, we also have less happy employees. As the C-suite, you should be worried about your employee happiness. You should worry about your efficiency. You want operations to be able to operate as smoothly as possible. You want to be able to not focus on the risk. You want to say, yes, processes are good, and check in. You want, if you had the whole entire company all on the same page, everything is going to be better. I know that's hard to quantify, but if they believed it in their hearts, they would certainly be taking more steps and walking the walk. We also have damage to your brand. There are people who are never, ever going to buy another Boar's Head product ever, just because it was in the news and lots of people were sick. right? Bruce Pack. How many pounds of meat did they recall? That's huge. Now, nobody knows Bruce Pack's name because they're supplying to institutions, right? But it could just as easily be you if we don't systemically fix the problems that we have. We also hopefully don't have the C-suite having personal responsibility, but with the Park Doctrine, you could. All right, for operations, you're not necessarily are you just going to talk to management. You want to go and talk to each and every department because that's how you're going to get people to start believing that regulation-conscious culture is important. Operations, if you tell your operations manager, hey, if we get a recall, you're going to have more downtime. You're going to have more disruption. You're going to have to reassess your procedures. You're going to have to implement corrective actions. You're going to have more scrutiny from all the people. You've got regulators in here all the time. You've got management in here all the time. You're going to have all kinds of paperwork to have to do. You're going to be less efficient. That's talking the talk to operations. You need their language. They need to know why is it important to them. Because then they're going to be, oh, yeah, a recall would be bad. And for those of you who've been through recalls, you know it's bad for everybody. The entire company is just on edge. If you're talking about R&D, you're going to have increased scrutiny for processes. You're going to have higher emphasis on basic safety. You're going to have decreased budget for your fun projects, right? You can't bring something new out if you're spending your time putting out fires and chasing the stuff that you should have been doing already. R&D wants to do the fun stuff. They don't want to put out fires. Come on, help them. Go talk to them. Regulations are important to you because you want to do fun stuff, right? Purchasing, logistics, you call them different things in your company, maybe. Increased testing, more cost, more time. Questioning your supply chain. Are you sure? Do you really want your bosses and your bosses' bosses making you check and triple check and quadruple check? Do you really want to have more tracking, more documentation, especially when it's sometimes duplicative? Now, hopefully, you'll paradigm shift and you'll do something like get some kind of procedure in place, I don't know, something like trace gains. So you're not inputting that data 4 times and fingering it. I don't know. Maybe you can streamline your processes. If you're in compliance, most of you are probably in compliance, even if you're at management. More work, more stress, recall, more scrutiny, more testing, more time teaching people how to do their job, teaching them why those regulations are important. Spending your time chasing your tail, not doing the stuff that's actually like sitting in conferences and talking about, hey, we need to be looking at things that CFIA is putting out or things that FDA is putting out. How do we comment on those regulations? How do we be part of the industry? How do we help it grow? You're putting out fires in your own company. You need to make sure that these things that you're doing are helping you do the best job that you can do in your company. And I know that's hard. But it starts with people like you going back and bending people's ear, helping them see why. The why is important. Now, if you're in marketing loves to push back at regulatory, right? I want to do this. You're like, no. I want to do this. No. And we heard, maybe no is not the answer. Yes, but is a great way to do it, right? I don't know who said that, one of the presentations. But if you get a recall, or you have to stop your product, or you have to hold it in the plant, you're going to have damage to your reputation. You're going to damage your brand. You're going to have increased emphasis on building that corporate trust again. You now have to deal with social media. That's not fun. Let's do the fun stuff. Let's do the stuff that makes you happy in your job. Let's not have to worry about having our promoters actually come out and say, hey, I'm not buying that product anymore, or losing lifetime customers. We don't want to do that. We want to do the fun, exciting stuff. We also, if you're talking about quality assurance, if you're going to be in firefighting mode, You're not able to maintain quality for everything else that you're missing. You've only got so many hours in the day. You've only got so many people on your team. You've only got so much bandwidth. You don't want to have to be the one who's firing, dealing with all the complaints, answering the phone to customers. Wait, what's going on? You have more scrutiny, more audits, more testing, negative impact on your continuous improvement. How are you going to get better when you're still dealing with the problem that you should have dealt with before? Your training people are probably scattered across your company, but if they're not, if you actually have a training department, you're going to have to go back to the basics. You're going to have to go back to those GMPs. You're going to have to go back to your HACCP planning, or plan, or your HARPC plan, or whatever else. What did we miss? More scrutiny on metrics, less time for predictable tasks, additional workload and stress. Nobody needs this. And even your HR people need to be on board. Because your HR people, when you have a company that has a problem, you're going to have stressed employees. They're taking more time off. They're going to be absent when they're working because they're stressed. You're going to have decreased cohesiveness. You're going to have more infighting. You're going to have a more difficult time hiring qualified employees. It's hard to hire when you've got a really big black eye. You don't want to be the company with the black eye. So I actually have this on a handout if anybody wants to stop by. I only did 50 of them, though. I didn't think you guys were all going to stay, but you Canadians, you're going to get your money worth out of this. So I do have some in case anybody wants it. It also happens to be on our website, so I'll show you the code in a minute. But as we're finishing up here, my goal was to be able to help you move to a culture of compliance and give you the why that you can talk to each of those departments to help start the shift of the paradigm. I want you to start with your intense, core, non-negotiable ethical values, and they have to come from your C-suite. Because if you don't have management on board, you're never going to be the gold star company. You're never going to be the most successful. And once the C-suite understands, they have to embrace the courage and vision for this paradigm shift. They have to actually be down there. They have to talk to the people. They have to talk to the employees in every single department and say, this is really important. I believe this. I understand why this is important. I want you to feel like this is important. We all need to be on the same page. We all need to feel this. And then they need to talk to other industry members, and they need to do the same thing. We need to be able to get this to shift. Because we don't have to have people sick and hospitalized and die. We don't have to have damage to your brand. We don't have to lose money because of something that we could have changed, because you can change this. Then I want you to hire staff who understand the why. And if you're going to keep your staff that you have, I want you to explain the why. I want you to take this back. I want you to actually sit down. I want you to ask them, hey, why is this important? Why do you think regulations are important? How would it make you feel or your department feel if we're not compliant? If auditors come in and we have problems? Explain the why. Move them around, just like when we're talking about our book from 1996. Move them into the places where they're going to be the most successful. And if people don't want to believe your vision, they don't want to shift the paradigm with you, hire somebody who does. Every single employee is important to your company, and having the same vision is super important to your success. I want you to foster dialogue that empowers employees. I was telling some people a story. There's an olive company. I know I'm over time here by 46 seconds. Olive company. One of the employees, one of the quality people, noticed that there were shards of the pits in the olives. Because of the culture in that company, that quality person did not stop the line, did not hold the product, because pulling that product was going to cost $90,000. Now, because that quality person let that product out, the recall was $12 million. And all of the stress, just because one person was too afraid of the bottom line. And then I want you to reward these employees who are actually proactively compliant. And I know that's hard to sell to management, but If you get employees who are already on board, you're not going to be Boar's Head. You're not going to be Bruce Pack. You're not going to be Grimley Farms. You're not going to be the Coster brothers. Reward them for telling you. Don't put negative things in place. Do not come back and smack them on the head. Don't tell us. We're going to lose money. Thank you. Oh, wait, I got one more. Sorry. So, thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, or we haven't talked already, I am, like I said, I'm the Associate Director at Michigan State University and the Institute for Food Laws and Regulations. IFLR is our acronym. We actually offer classes in regulatory leadership, international law, U.S. law, Canada food law. So if you're a youngster in the room and you want to learn food law, Canada, come. Dinesh and I will teach you. China food law, Codex, beer, wine, and spirits, FSMA, USDA, FSIS stuff. Meat people, that's a new class for us. And preventive controls and global animal health. We also are starting I'm going to let you in on a secret. We're starting a master's in regulatory affairs for food. It's not approved yet. We're halfway through the process, but start a class. Come with us. And if you want to learn more, you can scan the QR code, the QR code. It'll take you to our website. And if you want the handout, if you just want to be able to print it at home, if you look at the website, scroll down to news. I've linked the whole why page for you. So thanks.
Kris?